What job is criminally underpaid? My wife is a school teacher, specials K through 12, and puts in 60, 80 hours a week, some weeks more. In the summer, it's still 20 to 30 hours a week for those around 7 weeks, quote unquote, off. She makes one quarter of what I do as a corporate remote worker, putting in a light 30 in my home office. I do have a lot invested in my career. There are weeks I work like she does, but not many. And sweating out a corporate urgency on a Zoom call is a lot different than managing kids, parents, and administration face to face. We massively underpay teachers. Wait, she still works 20 to 30 hours in the summer? That's like not time off at all. That's just a heavily subsidized hobby. And she should bill the school for like emotional damages. Am I right? Right? Story 2. Assisted living / in-home caregiving, not private practice, memory care, basically anything to do with the elderly. I did it for a year, and while it was the most rewarding thing I've ever done, it also broke me over that year in a ton of different ways, all for $12.50 an hour. This was like 2011, but it still was miserable compensation even then. And the responsibility over 60 people's lives and well-being at any given moment, generally with maybe 3 to 4 other people, and that was supposed to be quote-unquote adequately staffed. Anyone who does that job is an absolute selfless hero in my book because there's no good outcome or saving the day. Doctors, EMSs, etc. can potentially save people. Caregivers, it's always just a matter of time, no matter what. The limited fleeting bond you could form with people at the end of their lives, the stories, the ramblings from a better time. These experiences could range from days to weeks to months and surely a few years, but they were always inevitably ended. No happy endings other than the morbid piece of seeing someone suffering pass in their sleep rather than a fall or hospice care. Story 3. Emergency medical services, EMS. I did that job part-time and I wouldn't blame all EMS personnel if they walked off the job completely. It is insane how low they are paid for the amount of training they have to have and the stuff they have to see. PTSD is not even the word that describes how many accidents you see in that job. All that aside, it has a very high turnover as a result. It's just not worth it. A lot of paramedics will get nursing license so they can make better money. I've seen so many people come and go that were great EMTs and paramedics because the pay was so bad. Story 4. The hardest job I ever had was my first job after college, which paid $13 an hour in Northern California. I'm guessing now it might be $17. I worked at a dual diagnosis youth facility for 4 to 18-year-olds with severe autism spectrum disorders plus other disorders, behavioral disorders, schizophrenia, etc. I felt like I was going into war every day because there were only a few of us mental health counselors who had to do everything from serving food, cleaning poop, handing out meds, to holding clients back on the freeway when they were trying to jump or trying to get them to stop throwing chairs or biting us or each other. That job severely affected my mental health, and I got paid $13 an hour for it when I had a bachelor's degree and years of experience in the mental health field. Story 5. Teachers, first responders, EMTs, paramedics, nurses, sanitation workers, customer service, especially retail, the most soul-sucking job to have that will make you realize most humans are very mean and very stupid, and trade workers. As an interior/exterior house painter, our pay maxes out at $23-ish an hour at most companies that also do not offer any benefits whatsoever, no PTO, sick pay, health insurance, etc. And we're climbing 40 feet up ladders in the sun for 9 hours for weeks. Most people consider us their personal movers and cleaners as well, not to mention the toxic fumes from materials, dust inhalation, and lead contamination. Pretty much every job aside from CEOs and cops do not get paid enough. Story 6. So I hate to point this out, but for as long as you're electing business owners in your government, nothing will change that will benefit you, the people. None of these should ever be private in a sane, civilized society where you're charged taxes, terminations are banned, and there's no paid maternity leave. There's no job security, and men are not being held accountable for getting women pregnant. Hospitals / the medical field / medical insurance, EMTs, firefighters, schools, education, college, police, childcare, retirement, pension. But when you allow corporate greed to dictate everything, you lose the right to complain about not being paid fair wages. Women are still paid less for doing the same jobs, FYI. You want kids, but you provide zero support for parents to raise them, and now you make AI take their jobs too after you bury them in college debt. Go ahead, explain how that makes any sense. Photographers and graphic designers are also nickel and dimed, and without photos and graphics, most businesses wouldn't stay alive. People want to make you believe it's just the camera, or you just click a button, or mock Photoshop, even though those who wish to make a living using Adobe Creative Suite are often burdened with student loans, and their reality couldn't be more different. No one tells a builder it's their hammer. Anyway, there is a general disrespect for people who actually do the work in America, and it all starts with parents who want to keep up with the Jonases so badly that they have the nerve to teach kids to mock jobs they'll never be able to do themselves and or push them on Wall Street to gamble with your hard-earned money, and no one wins. You created a lawyered society where nothing gets accomplished and you all lose. No one should be buried in debt for learning how to do a job. No one should be homeless in the greatest country either. No one should be without a pension after working all of their lives, either 1099 or W-2. No one should be without health insurance. No one should be homeless and have no access to safe, proper housing. I'm a single mom. I work 3 jobs, and my main day job pays $18 an hour, and I cannot even afford a 1-bedroom for me and my kids. I rent 1 room in Airbnbs, and I'm not a minority. I work from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Do you want to explain to me why I cannot find a single place to live? I'm an American citizen, and I don't even qualify for Medicaid now because I make $18 an hour, and apparently that makes me quote-unquote rich? So my kids and I have no access to health insurance. My son, who's autistic, lost his therapies as a result of not qualifying for Medicaid, and the health care from my job would cost me $800+ a month for the 4 of us, which is obviously unaffordable. You get what you elect. Story 7. Teachers, especially in Indonesia. For perspective, let's look at some numbers first. The legal minimum wage is about $200-300 a month for full-time, 40-ish hours a week. This is valid for laborers on factories or cashiers at big supermarket chains. The de facto minimum wage is about $150 for a full-time worker. This is for workers at small retail or workshops. Now let's talk about teachers. We have teachers at public schools who are employed as public servants. They are paid well enough and get a bonus. Then you have teachers at private schools. They are just like regular companies, so nothing is wrong here. Finally, there is a group called honorary teachers. Honorary as in freelance. The idea is this will be their internship before becoming a public servant. They only get paid $20 a month. That's only enough for 20 meals maybe. Story 8. Not to be biased, but special education professionals. I work at a special needs school where we are one-on-one with autistic children. All my students are up to age 10. I get paid more than minimum wage, but not by much. But I have been bitten more than once. Nearly got concussed once. Been threatened and screamed at on the daily. I get my hair pulled and my arm scratched and pinched. None of my students are potty trained, so I wipe poopy butts most days at work. Most times I tell a stranger what I do, I get thanked. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love what I do. Seeing my kids grow and learn and shine gives me a little fire on my heart like nothing else can. I go through a lot of work and I'm on the very low end of livable wages. I would like to be compensated a bit more fairly considering I know from experience how human bites feel in more than one location. Story 9. Licensed professional counselors and LMSWs/LSCSWs, licensed master/clinical social workers. The amount of education, supervised hours, and fees we pay for licensure, CEs, continuing education, certifications, etc. definitely deserves more. For reference, my first post-grad job, and even when fully licensed in community mental health, i.e. often the most marginalized and severely mentally ill demographics, was $28,000 a year. My husband made more as a third key for GameStop, but we are convinced we have to stick it out to earn our stripes. Also, they promised I'd qualify for PSLF, Public Service Loan Forgiveness, and went back on it, refused to sign my application because the required number of contact hours didn't match their productivity demands. Story 10. Food, anything food. Farmers, field workers, processors, the people moving it around and keeping it cold, all of it. The whole supply chain. I'm also going to lump grocery store workers, cooks, servers, chefs, cafeteria workers, all of it. And here's the thing, you put this stuff in your body. There are so few things you can say this about, and this stuff can kill you if mishandled. Additionally, every great civilization is 3 meals away from collapse. Societies are precariously reliant on complex, fragile food systems for stability, and a breakdown in the food supply can quickly lead to chaos, civil disobedience, and societal collapse. Seriously, people stop eating. We get riots in the streets and violence quick. Now, do you really want this mantle of responsibility placed on the lowest paid people in society? If you get food and it's bad, it can destroy. If you don't get food, that will destroy you. If other people don't get food, they will destroy you. Food systems. The food systems are under-resourced. Story 11. Veterinary technicians. I was one during and for some time after lockdown because I couldn't do my normal job during that time. Those, mostly women, push themselves to unbelievable levels to help animals, and most of the treatments and tests they do are the exact same tests that human nurses do, but they make at least $10 less per hour, if not more. Not to mention how insanely corrupt nearly every practice is becoming because they need to sell out to corporations in order to survive. The money that the doctors bring home compared to the tax is crazy, and a lot of the time, the doctor does absolutely nothing with your animal. They come in and talk and then hand it off to the tech who is better and more trained than the doctor. Obviously, this is just my experience. Either way, they don't make enough while saving the lives of our furry family members. Story 12. Fireman. My son was a 4-year scholarship athlete, got his graduate degree in human science, and has always wanted to serve his entire life. He just graduated fire school at a top-tier fire department. He's now in EMT school, which is another requirement for being a fireman. He makes $51,000 a year. To be fair, he pays no social security and has a fantastic pension if he stays there 30 years. Great benefits all around, really. But $51K? These guys are always the first responders. He's already seen 2 people pass away, severely badly injured. I asked him what he did at work the other day, and he said he scraped brains off the highway. He loves his job and takes a ton of pride in what he and his team do every day. He works 24 hours on, 48 hours off, so almost all of them have second jobs. It's a great career, but these guys get my vote for the most criminally underpaid. Story 13. People who clean our drains and streets. People think that just because that worker is perhaps not that educated or skilled, this was their last resort. And sure, that might be the case, but it's such an essential and borderline inhuman job that sits at the core of the existence and sustenance of our infrastructure that makes me feel these people are criminally underpaid. If your drains start overflowing, all the muck on your roads and lawns would literally stop your world. Plus, we just aren't appreciative enough of them doing their job faithfully. Story 14. Cooks, restaurant workers, it's not technical work. People in Morocco roast the same as Polynesian people, but most people just don't know how. The word restaurant comes from the French word that means restore. The very first doctors and nurses, shamans or witch doctors or healers, whatever term is appropriate, didn't have potions or pills or surgery to fix a problem. The tools they used to fix people were food, hearty stews, vegetables, bread. Still, to this day, the best preventive medicine is eating your vegetables and some legumes and walking half a dozen miles each day. The right diet can prevent disease or lessen the symptoms. Sure, no heart disease and no type 2 diabetes, but Alzheimer's disease and other mental ailments may be impacted by diet. Culinarians get paid so little for saving the human race. Story 15. I didn't scroll through to see if this was mentioned. Fast food drive-through worker. I did this job so many years ago and it was freaking stressful. I had to take orders, bag up food, take payments, etc. All the while, there was a big red countdown clock above me which tracked how long it was from a car ordering to leaving the payment and delivery area. Once it got to 0, an alarm went off, which was super helpful to my job of taking orders, bagging orders, taking payments, and handing food over to customers. Probably only 5% of drive-through customers are schmucks, but when you are doing that job, it's a statistically significant amount. And since I worked the night shift, I also got to clean the dining room, the bathrooms, and the whole kitchen area every night. Story 16. Like most of them, honestly, employees are literally sharing their lives with their jobs. They are giving up their most precious resource, their time. Time spent with friends and family, time spent doing the things that they love, having experiences, making memories, all of which they'd rather be doing than going to work all day for most of their lives. In exchange for that, the very least you can do is provide them a good enough wage to allow them to live comfortably and still have enough time for everything else that life should be about. Not to mention enough to retire on when they decide to call it quits. What amount do you suppose that is, and what % of people make that? Story 17. Childcare caretaker. I know people think it is an unskilled job, but people have no idea how depression and anxiety can affect the child. I live close to a private daycare place. They charge parents over $3,000 a month for each kid and pay their caretakers minimum wage. Although the ratio is like 4-to-1, which is okay, but come on. If each kid is $5 per hour with a caretaker, that's $20 per hour, not $12 per hour. And assuming each kid is there for 40 hours a week, 160 hours per month, $3,000 over 160 is close to $20 per hour. This means the admin takes about 75% of the cut while the person doing the work gets 30%. And by the way, no benefits because they don't actually work 40 hours a week. The admins make sure they only work about 20 hours at most to avoid giving them any health benefits. And yet, I know plenty of good people doing this kind of work, but also people who probably need their demons exercised. But hey, that's capitalism, right? Story 18. Teachers and care providers. To think of the amount of quote-unquote investment we put into our future, it's actually disgusting. Teachers, daycare providers, kids before kindergarten, and care providers for senior retirees are disgustingly underpaid. In addition, frontline responders from paramedics, police officers, to firefighters to think about how much they are paid to save and rescue lives compared to absolute schmuck CEOs is absolutely absurd. Story 19. Therapy. With a master's degree, fully licensed in multiple states, up to date on all CE continuing education, and trained in specialized areas, I get $35 an hour from a company that only pays me when patients show up. Late cancels or no call, no show equals no money for me. I am 1099, so I have to pay awfully high taxes in my honest opinion and get no benefits. I'm expected to see 50 plus people per week and do all their treatment planning, actual treatment, compliant documentation, and billing within 24 hours of seeing them. Signing all their paperwork and keeping up to date on the latest treatments, all within 7 minutes between sessions if we start and stop on time. If I go private practice and cash only, I can make more, but then I have to do all that, plus the business management and advertising and overhead costs. Story 20. Vet techs and vet assistants, school or no school, criminally underpaid, treated like you don't know anything because you don't have extra letters in front and at the end of your name, but then expected to explain why the person with letters in front and after their name wants to do X treatment, all to be told no, that's too expensive, or they laugh at you while their dog tries biting you. And you're also expected to clean messes, do laundry, help the doctor, do x-rays, help in surgery, and do a million things that are opposite of each other. Story 21. From my experience, I would say sawmill workers. I know it's quote-unquote unskilled labor or whatever, but that's really not the case for people who stay working in it. You need to be in decent shape and you need to be able to keep an eye on your surroundings because pretty much everything in there can destroy or at least maim you. I used to have to fix this sweep chain all the time, and I swear if you can do that without passing out, you should instantly get a raise. LOL. It's ridiculous. It's like a giant chain that runs across the floor of the building and they send one dude to pull it back on. I thought I was going to pass away after the first time. Story 22. At the moment, I can only think of jobs that are criminally overpaid, which is basically almost anything that happens in corporate offices. There are way too many jobs out there, predominantly in corporate companies that are extremely easy to do, jobs that anybody can do. Yet these people are making $150,000 plus a year. Almost every person I've seen with a corporate job, regardless of their field or title, is doing work that anybody can do, making phone calls, sending emails, attending meetings, etc., work that does not require any type of specialized skill or education. However, you can't get hired in one of these jobs unless you have at least a bachelor's degree. I can't be the only person that finds it offensive that an intelligent, competent person can't get hired to send emails and make phone calls, but an incompetent, skillless idiot can interview and get hired all because they have a bachelor's degree in basket weaving. It's basically corporate companies gatekeeping a decent income from anyone who wasn't willing to put themselves in serious debt with our banking system, or gatekeeping unless your parents could afford to send you to college by paying in full. When I was working in corporate offices, it was absolutely shocking to me that literally every single person I came into contact with was just a TGI Friday/Old Navy moron who made phone calls, sent emails, and went to meetings where a room full of people blabbed about profits, but nothing actually was accomplished by any of those freaking meetings. Story 23. Food. My roommate is a food worker, and it's so awful the way people treat them. Underpaid, no progression, with terrible overwork, no/limited benefits. Examples: scheduling 30 to 32 hours for someone full-time so that they can work a shift to fill in without overtime. Everyone does this. Unpredictable schedules, such that they can't seek other part-time work or even have regular fun or 2 days off together or even know what they could do that week. No retirement, no medical, no sick time, plus required 2 weeks time off for lockdown to this day. Limiting hours to 4.75 hours a day so they didn't have to pay for a cheap meal. Major food chain. Story 24. Teachers, they take care of and are responsible for so many kids, not just one. They've paid for college and master's degrees and certifications, swimming and college debt. They have regular testing for curriculum changes, and they always need to be professional and dress professionally, be sober. They have papers to grade for hours, knowing all your students' individual needs and starting over every year. Paying for the classroom supplies out of pocket, and especially in the beginning of their careers, they are all barely getting paid enough to live comfortably while they're paying debts from college. Story 25. Almost every field that makes the world livable is treated as a throwaway life. We nearly expect teachers to retire with nothing. We could do literally nothing without minors, but screw them. They don't need shoes. They'll slip and pass away and employment goes up. Yay. Most jobs where you get a wretched stink don't even provide laundering or showers. Obviously, teachers deserve comfort in old age, minors deserve thorough safety equipment, and garbage men deserve not to take the stench of the world home. It's painfully obvious. But we're not playing for the same team. It's wealth versus the masses and the masses versus each other. Story 26. Nearly any career in which you truly give back to society. Anthropologist David Graeber found that, though there are exceptions, a vast number of careers that are underpaid, careers, not roles, are ones that are seen as quote-unquote contributing to society in some way, teachers, EMTs, social workers. He posits that this occurs because some people view the act of contributing to society as rewarding in itself, and therefore recognize that the people who perform these roles, many, not all, will do so for poor pay because they are committed to the contribution more than the money. Basically, people's passions are being taken advantage of. Story 27. A lot of jobs. Honestly, I think we should increase starting pay and just have fewer raises. The people at the top should be making a hell of a lot less than they do, and if they did, it would fund a massive bump for everyone else. People have way more than they could ever possibly need or even know what to do with. I've been running into that with my mom lately. She's well off, but not a multimillionaire or anything, and she has a 6,000 square foot 2-story house of which she uses 4 to 5 of the 11 rooms it has. The garage is just for storing excess crap. She can't even put her car in it. And if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 28. I'm a licensed veterinary technician. I feel I am underpaid and often regarded as less than a human nurse. We often have to do a lot more, like dentistry, radiology, hematology, phlebotomy, pharmacy, surgical assisting, administering, monitoring, anesthesia, etc. We do a lot of the orderly, waste disposal, janitorial tasks as well. The educational commitment is very comparable. In human medicine, all the fields are specialized and have different staff, many paid better but with less overall responsibility. But we pivot between these tasks within single cases. We still deal with the human element because people are quite emotional about their family members. Some pets are just property to some people, and we see the end result of that as well. We like or love our patients and clients as a whole. My favorite thing is having an owner leave and feel comfortable with post-operative care when they have never done it before. I educate them and show them their pet trusted and thank me at the end of the day, which many do. The public seemingly thinks we are fat cats swimming in cash. Veterinary care simply costs more and more as medical supplies continue to inflate and the dollar continues to weaken. We are in Washington also, where groceries and living are almost the most expensive in the nation, but we are not subsidized by insurance companies or payments from state-sponsored healthcare. There are a few insurances that handle basic bills, but not like human medical. A lot of our pay and the handling of our assets is determined by the private equity firm and massive corporation that owns the hospital or hospitals in your area. I make about $28.30 an hour with credentials. My veterinary assistants make $20 to $22 an hour, and a lot of them do a large chunk of what we do. Washington minimum is $16.66, and for what we do, it feels pretty paltry as compensation. I know plenty of nurses have to be making twice that with decent benefits. Our benefits are okay, some PTO, good medical, dental. No 401k for me though. I am passionate about what I do. I also have special skills like working with exotic species, rodent and rabbit anesthesia, etc. I'm proficient in dental radiography, but make what a dog-cat vet tech makes. I'm making $52,000 annually after taxes and withholding come out. My point is, we don't make enough to carve out a living or buy property. We make enough to survive and save a tiny bit to have 1 week or so off a year. We are not Scrooge McDucking it at your local vet clinic. We are trying our best to help your family and keep the lights on and shelves stocked. We are still gatekept from calling ourselves nurses. Lastly, veterinarians are way underpaid for the education, surgical skills, species variety, and case management that they have to do. With owners who can't really afford the care we would need to do to maintain best practice, we're not always able to practice perfect medicine. We are often bargaining with what services we can do rather than all that is needed. Be kind to your veterinary staff. There's a reason our field is often compared with dentists for the highest emotional toll in the profession. Vets specifically, not techs. But still, we can be put in a low place. The only people considered uber wealthy in vet med are successful private practice owners or corporate pharmaceutical industries. And among those, many aren't buying any yachts or houses in Aspen. They are affluent and or have horses, etc., but that's it. Story 29. I would say care workers, but I understand it. I worked in home care and care homes for years and the pay is abysmal, but unfortunately, if they want to give you a pay raise outside of the mandatory ones, they would have to raise the cost to the clients. And I think that is so unfair for the elderly and disabled who need those carers because 9 times out of 10, they have to pay towards their own care, as the government doesn't cover the whole cost. I knew an old lady who couldn't walk farther than a few steps, and she lived for years in a box room with no toilet or bathroom. She had to use a commode because she couldn't use the bathroom when someone else was in the room, and we couldn't allow her to be alone in the main bathrooms. But they had empty rooms with en-suites. Story 30. FedEx ground delivery drivers. Most of them are paid a daily salary and work 50 to 60-hour weeks for no additional money. And what they do get is a joke. They have to deliver packages up to 150 pounds, and because FedEx isn't worried about hourly rates, they give great deals on over 70s, packages over 70 pounds, and it constitutes a huge portion of their deliveries. It breaks your body, and there's so many situations you can't use a dolly for one reason or another. A lot of people assume because they're driving the same trucks as UPS and doing the same work, they make a lot of money, but it is not even close. And no, they don't get benefits most of the time either. Story 31. Social workers. Most people don't realize that social workers are highly trained professionals. Minimum 6 years of college, including 1,000 hours of unpaid internships, then 3,000 to 4,000 post-grad supervised hours before even being eligible to test for full licensure. Then, if they want to add a specialization minus fixation, I added another 2-year degree and another 2,500 fixation-specific supervised hours on top of my master's. Also, 95% of the time, we have to pay for supervision out of pocket. Easy to assume $10,000 in post-grad supervision fees over 3 years. The $1 million to $3 million liability policy I have to carry in case I say something that causes someone to go off the deep end. On a weekly basis, I am having conversations with actively depressed people and developing crisis and safety plans to keep them safe once they leave my office. I frequently testify at termination of parental rights hearings. I counsel parents whose children have coded. Oh, and I'm in Seattle, which has such high COL, cost of living, many of my seniors on fixed Social Security incomes are getting evicted. Single parents are unable to afford rent and childcare. Most people don't consider the emotional impact of these positions on top of the massive student debt it often requires to attain the training. Story 32. About to finish my career shortly, I made $17,000, including working quite a bit of OT in 1996 and my first year as an EMT basic. I can make anywhere from $75,000 base salary to well over $100,000 if I wanted some OT at this point in my career. Now I work at an FD, fire department, 17 years on an ALS, advanced life support engine. I work for the local county-run EMS provider and damn near starved my family. Paramedic school in 97, a few more years running my butt off for what? No sleep, crappy supervision, stupid witchy ED staff at us because we're bringing them patients, crappy pay, and of course 2 failed marriages. Well, here I sit, 2 ex-wives, 2 grown kids that are doing great, and 1 beautiful little granddaughter. On a positive note, when I left EMS, I literally just changed shirts. I went to the local FD that we ran calls with in the city limits. Hell, I even got to stay on the same shift. Life's good now, I wouldn't change a thing. Story 33. CNAs, certified nursing assistants, EMTs, they could use more training too, especially CNAs. The incentive of higher pay would at least help with the poor quality our elders and veterans receive. As a former CNA who truly cared, I made nothing, but it wasn't the pay that made me quit. I was doing it for the experience and I physically, mentally could not do it. It made me feel awful, never mind the pettiness that comes with those nursing homes. All chiefs, I went to home health and actually was paid more and had time to talk, bathe, and care for the patient. It's freaking sad. Story 34. No one really understands how little local journalists are paid, like criminally little. Most are required to write, shoot, edit, and then be the on-air talent for their own news stories. No photographers at all, you even shoot your own live shots, and you're often turning 3 to 4 pieces of content a day and working long hours. When I started in local news, I was making $31,000 in a major metro area. Some journalists where I live now in a rural area make minimum wage despite having 4-year degrees. It's nuts. News is still pretty profitable, but the execs make bank and no one else does. If you want better media coverage and local news, demand better pay from news corporations. Story 35. Teachers and nurses if you don't live in a major metro with a strong union. It has taken my wife 10 years to get to $90,000 teaching high school in Massachusetts with 2 master's degrees. My best friend's wife works at a major children's hospital and makes a little less. This is often a topic of debate, but no matter where you stand, if you want your children's teachers and healthcare workers to be educated and experienced, you need to ensure they can afford to live in the community they work. A new teacher with a bachelor's degree comes in under $50,000 in many places. 11% of their pay in Massachusetts goes to their pension. No Social Security is deducted, but gone are the days of putting in 20 years and retiring. Most teachers need to commit to 30 years to gain their full pension. This all assumes the money is still there in a few decades. My wife has colleagues who Uber before going to work to make ends meet. These are science, math, English, and language teachers in a public high school. All have at least a bachelor's degree in their respective fields. Story 36. Not to self-insert, but I'm a surgical technologist. We maintain the sterile field during an operation and assist the surgeon within our limits, which means we prevent any possible infection and keep everyone on track of doing the same. Your eyes and ears are everywhere at once, all while making sure you have everything the doctor needs and knowing their quirks to make things move quickly. It's basically babysitting and playing hot lava on level 1000. We stand beside someone that makes more in a month than we'll see in 10 years or even longer. I get looked at crazy when I say we should be paid more than $25 straight out of school. Story 37. Most public employees, including EMTs, firefighters, and teachers, they rely on tax dollars which are raised and appropriated by local and state governments. If you attend their meetings and look over your local budgeting and state budgeting, you will see how the money is allocated and possibly why. If you get involved, vote, and spend a few minutes of your busy week or month learning why these people are underpaid, we all might be able to do something to help. Sadly, it will probably require either increased taxes or reducing allocations for other funded projects and programs in your town or state. Finally, the federal government before this administration was helping local and state governments with grants and equipment and other aid for the less fortunate who every religion I know about says we need to help and love. So we can complain about how being underpaid our civil servants are, or we can collectively do something about it by voting and taking an interest in our local communities. It's up to each and every one of us, isn't it? Cheers. Story 38. Any job you have that doesn't include you into the upper class, everyone is pretty much criminally underpaid due to them having to work more than 40 hours a week to still have to struggle and worry how they won't be on the streets if they miss a day of work. Kinda sounds like the average American is a slave. Now get back to work so you can pay your taxes and have nothing left in the end to point that those crying over you have to pay your funeral expenses. Story 39. Call center workers. Sure, it's a sit-down office job or in front of a computer and on the phone, but you deal with the workload pace and highs and lows that are mentally and emotionally exhausting to the point of breakdown. And a quick reminder to any and all CEOs, VPs, HR, quote-unquote competitive pay, just means that the pay is incrementally higher than the average in that industry. But if the industry itself is drastically underpaid across the board compared to the cost of living, that just means you've deliberately chosen to make your employees struggle and resent you. Story 40. Librarians. A librarian requires a master's degree so that they can start at a salary that barely competes with Target these days. I see social workers on this list and want to point out that libraries are often the place the city and town sends people when they do not have the funding or facilities to deal with them otherwise. It's also the place that many people come who are in need of social workers and social services, and librarians are the ones that connect them. Government wants people to fill out taxes online. Great. Where do you think the less fortunate are accessing computers? Who do you think is helping them figure out how to fill out these forms? Is your country still fighting a war on substances instead of providing safe access and care for the fixated? Guess where they are creeping up? Is some billionaire funding grassroots campaigns to get on boards and generally complain about any information that jostles their worldview? Guess who is operating on the front lines of that culture war? The list goes on, but there are a good number of librarians on Reddit, and I'm probably already triggering them if they haven't hit their breaking point already and started filling out that target application. Story 41. Any caretaking position. From personal experience, I can loudly say that mental health and behavioral techs are very underpaid. Working in a job that regularly sends people to the hospital due to assault by clients has a very high burnout rate, and very high secondary trauma is hard. Not to mention, people in these roles are caring for individuals that their family and parents cannot handle, and they are supervising 4 out of 10 of these individuals at once. It takes a huge toll on your mental health, and it barely pays the bills. Being in charge of safety for those that do not have an interest in keeping themselves safe is rough. I'm sorry, but $15, $17 an hour is not enough. Also, these jobs don't require a college degree most of the time. From what I've found, however, you are not paid enough, nor do you have the mental energy or time to finish your degree due to working very hectic, often short staff hours. This keeps people stuck in the same workplace forever. HR, who is meant to be your advocate, has often never been on the floor and has no idea what the job often entails. Story 42. Teaching. Going into a violent inner-city place, trying to get people to even care about the subject, never mind doing the work, with half of your caseload being people whose parents have ankle bracelets and the other half are Karens upset that you don't automatically give out A's because they want little Tanner to go to Harvard and you're standing in the way. Having to buy your own supplies because schools are criminally underfunded and expected to have expensive master's degrees and be underpaid and expected to work free overtime to do things like clubs and sports. And on top of that, that's some near illiterate Yaley fake can thinking your job needs to be scored like salespeople hitting quotas, as if teaching people is on par with manufacturing or some other endeavor that can be judged entirely on its own merit. And you realize the only people who make it are people who teach to the test. For example, quote unquote, the answer to the upcoming test is A for question 1. Remember that, 1A. And then question 2, that will be B. 1A, 2B. Remember that. And then going in after hours under the cover of darkness to use an eraser and a pencil to change the score so you can actually get enough of a merit bonus to afford food. Story 43. Maintenance mechanical engineers, they do almost as much engineering as the development team. The only difference is that they make and design parts for the machinery used by the company instead of clients, so they're paid significantly less. Also, MT's machine translation revision, it's the same amount of work as translating a text on its own. You have to read and understand every sentence and then judge whether the MT segment is an accurate representation in the target language, but with much stricter deadlines and about half the rate. I can count on one hand the amount of MT rev jobs I've taken as a translator, and they all sucked. Story 44. It's disheartening how many people I'm seeing who are so quick to defend a low wage of a job, claiming it's, quote, not that bad of a job anyway. I don't think paying, say, a $15 minimum wage means we have to hail fry cooks as demigods, but I think it means they should be given enough money to keep up with ridiculously inflated prices of, especially rent, among other things. In order to pay for my rent, gas, and food, my bare essentials, I have to make less than $1,200 a month, with most jobs offering an insulting $10 an hour. This means I have to work 30 hours a week. I should add that I'm still on my parents' insurance and phone plan, so that number would likely be lots higher if I wasn't. And keep in mind, folks, this is just to cover my fundamental, essential expenses. God dang, do I want to live in the woods. Story 45. Librarians and library support staff. It's not uncommon that the wage on paper is decent, but the institution costs cut by keeping jobs part-time or temporary to avoid providing benefits. The education required is high, and the job requires continual education once in the field. With the exception of smaller institutions or institutions with unique bylaws, it's increasingly difficult to take the journeyman's path through libraries. One really can't advance past a certain point without the master's degree. Pitiful pay for the level of education required and for the level of customer service labor involved. This can be extended to museum workers and archival and public history workers as well. Story 46. My time to shine. Greetings from the veterinary industry. We do everything that human healthcare workers do for a fraction of the pay and a fraction of the respect. More and more veterinary professionals are ending themselves every year, and that has skyrocketed even more during lockdown. There's so many contributing factors, way too many to list here, but the two main components for me are respect and pay. I get yelled at, threatened, berated, and accused of awful things by angry, frustrated, and grieving people. I empathize with them, but at the same time, I make $16 an hour. I could be making more working at Target or the dollar store or almost anywhere else, but I choose to stay in this field because I feel it's where I belong. And it is industry wide. If you're one of the corporate higher ups, you're golden, but no one else gets paid living wages, even though the corporation I work for is worth billions. Shocking, I know. Even a doctor in my area of New England makes an average of $60,000 a year. And there are doctors who went to vet school for a very long time. God knows how much debt they accrued, but I can only guess that kind of salary is a joke compared to the payments they have to make to put a dent in it. I'm angry and I'm exhausted. I'm tired of screaming into the void. I'm tired of taking the emotional brunt of people who don't take care of their pets and make me the bad guy. But most of all, I'm just sick of people who think my job is to play with puppies and kittens all day. It's not. My job is juggling the needs of a person and their pet with the well-being of my doctors and techs. How many immunization appointments can I book before my doctor falls behind the rest of the day? How confident am I that this vaccine appointment is just an immunization and nothing else? Yesterday, a client's just an immunization appointment turned out to be a very sick animal, and suddenly we were all working 12 hours instead of 10 because the owner either lied about or was blissfully unaware of his pet's condition. Sorry for the rant. I know this is sloppily written and just begging for citations, but I'm just so tired. To the handful of people who took the time to read this, thank you. It's nice to know our voices sometimes reach through the void. Story 47. I'm surprised at the top answers in this thread. Jobs like retail work, custodial, etc. are low-skill jobs that anyone can do with little to no training and shouldn't command high wages. I expected to see teachers here because it's the in thing to call teachers underpaid, but honestly, $50,000 per year with benefits for 9 months of work and a workday that ends at 3 p.m. isn't a bad wage at all. It's not a popular opinion, but I'd say police officers are underpaid. You're getting paid less than teachers, and your day-to-day risk is much higher, and the work is garbage. You're called in at all hours and all weather, and everyone treats you bad. And if any of these stories got to you too, teachers, police officers, wink wink, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.